One World Cup winner,
It is France. Allez les Bleus. All rise.
and one Ballon d'Or contender.
Vini Malvadeza, que golaço!
Two biggest superstars in the world, two players capable of deciding an entire match. Players that any coach would dream of having in their squad. Real Madrid were ready for a new era of dominance. What can go wrong?
If Mbappe lands Madrid, Barcelona doesn't have to get ready. The world has to get ready. Man City needs to get ready. Bayern needs to get ready. Because Vinícius Júnior and Mbappe on the same team, there is no defense in the world that can clamp that. I don't care if you got Rodri and Ruben Diaz, you cannot clamp the speed of Vinícius Júnior and Mbappe on the counterattack. No team in the world can. It's impossible, especially when Jude Bellingham and Madrid are whipping passes to them on the wings.
But everything collapsed faster than anyone could have imagined.
We have two of the worst superstars in the world. We are disgusting, chat.
That's it, that's full time. ودي mamma. Fuera en familj. Lära hela en existens. Sen نعمتهم. Are we surprised? Are we surprised about this team?
No.
I've had enough. I swear on my life, I've had enough of every single one of these people. I swear on my life, none of them deserve to play for Real Madrid.
Those very names with the highest expectations are now becoming a €100 million disaster.
Kylian Mbappé or Vini needs to leave this club with immediate effect. Leave Real Madrid this summer as soon as possible. I don't care. I've had it up to here with both of them because I don't see them getting us closer to a trophy together. Maybe as a singular player, yes, either Mbappe or Vini playing on the left, amazing. But as a unit together, they are not getting us closer to any trophy anytime soon.
Now, everything about them is just two big egos fighting for the same spot on the left wing. They cannot elevate the team and are even destroying an entire system. So, where is the problem? Real Madrid have always been a team filled with world-class players. Kylian Mbappé, Vinícius Júnior, Jude Bellingham, Federico Valverde, Rodrigo. People often jealous of this team.
Who can win games for us, but the reason we have won not only the Champions League but our domestic league is because we are a team, we are a unit. We're not about individuals, we're about us together. That's the only thing. Because as far as the game's concerned, the guy's frightening. On his day, I don't care who you are, you can't stop him.
On paper, this is a squad fully capable of dominating all of Europe. A squad you would expect to control matches, impose their style of play, and turn the biggest games into their own personal stage. But it was all just a dream. And now it's time for everyone to wake up. In recent seasons, Real Madrid have not shown any of those qualities. They have failed to win major and minor trophies to prove that strength. They lost to their rivals Barcelona in the Supercopa de España.
That Barcelona have done it tonight. They are the 2026 Spanish Super Cup winners.
They were eliminated from the competition they have always been proud to rule as kings, the Champions League, by Bayern Munich.
Madrid are unhappy, of course they are. It wouldn't be natural if they weren't. For Mbappé, the real emotion is about to hit them. They're out of the Champions League at the quarter-final stage again. And I can't, Andy, believe the way in which they finished it.
And they were even knocked out by Albacete in the Copa del Rey. Yes, you might not even know who this team is, and they are a second division club.
For the second time and first since 94-95, Real Madrid eliminated by lower league opposition for the first time since the 2021 year. This is a disaster for Real Madrid.
Amazing. Turns out Manchester United's failure has been packaged and shipped to Spain. Real Madrid can no longer maintain consistency long enough to control matches. Instead of winning through a system, they constantly have to rely on individual moments, a dribble, a long-range shot, a sudden explosion of brilliance, just to actually secure victories. It is true that Real Madrid are a strong team with superstar players. They absolutely have the right to rely on their players to create those moments. But relying entirely on those things is a completely different story. When those very stars are not in their best form, defeats become inevitable.
Is his performance alone going to be enough to get them that success, to win the La Liga title, to really compete in the Champions League? Because that was better tonight, but what we've seen over the last couple of months isn't going to be good enough to win the Champions League. It might be good enough to win La Liga, and the question is, going forward, are we going to see more of this from Real Madrid, this kind of performance and continuation of Kylian Mbappe's form? And that's going to bring the team success at the end of the year, or is it just going to be another great season for him and Real Madrid have fallen flat?
Just look at the numbers. Kylian Mbappé has always been a ruthless goalscorer, capable of consistently maintaining 30-40 goals in a peak season. This is a level of output that only the most elite players in the world can provide.
If Ronaldo was doing this, if Messi was doing this, we'd be talking about best players in the world.
Mbappé is one of those players that he can get you out of a difficult moment. He can turn the game on its head.
Vinícius Júnior, under Ancelotti, once reached more than 20 goals and 20 assists, becoming the creative and explosive centre of Real Madrid's attack. It was precisely this brilliance that turned him into a direct contender and brought him extremely close to winning the 2024 Ballon d'Or.
Junior, right now, when he focuses and concentrates on playing the game and displaying his talent, the special talent that he is world class. He is at an elite level. When he concentrates and focuses on fighting with everybody else, he comes back to the crowd. But when he's all about playing, there's no stopping him.
Alongside them, Jude Bellingham, despite being a midfielder, has a scoring output that is not inferior to a striker at all. In the 2023-24 season, he contributed 23 goals and 13 assists for Los Blancos, helping Real Madrid win the Champions League.
You know, you see someone like Jude arrive at such a young age and perform the way he's performed. You know, Jude is a superstar. I think his first season was incredible, and it'll be interesting when he comes back after his injury, you know, how he adapts to this new team.
Individually, every single one of them has the perfect profile. These are the numbers of players fully capable of carrying a team and deciding an entire tournament. But that is what everyone thought.
Celebrate themselves, because every single player that I see on Real Madrid right now is showcasing individual talent, that they can be competitive as an individual. So you can look at Vinícius Júnior individually on his day, 1v1, very good player. Will cause problems to any defender in the world. Kylian Mbappé, obviously goal scoring this season, outstanding, right? What is it, 41 goals in 40 games or something like that? It's ridiculous, the stats that he's got this year. But 24 goals, I'd expect more from Kylian Mbappé in La Liga this season. One-on-one, he's probably the best player in the world right now, as far as I'm concerned. But when you actually mix all that together, is it a good team? That's the big problem I have with Real Madrid.
When all of them are placed into one system, the imbalance begins to appear. They still shine in Real Madrid's setup and still produce incredible statistics. But the problem is that Real Madrid cannot impose their style of play and cannot win the decisive matches. The very matches where comeback moments once became Real Madrid's trademark.
But that's in the history of Real Madrid, not in the history of this group of players. This group of players, they don't have a comeback in them because they don't seem to be interested in the comeback.
They kill themselves.
Yeah, well, yes, yes. They're the ones stabbing themselves, and that's a problem.
No one is willing to sacrifice. No one is willing to control the game. No one is willing to track back defensively. Everyone wants to be the centre of the system. From the very moment Mbappé entered the squad, the problem had already been built in. Mbappé is not bad at all. On the contrary, he is too special. Mbappé is not just a piece within a system. He is the system itself.
And again, he's going to give you 62 goals. He's going to give you 70 goals. He's going to give you a lot of goals because we're talking about a serious player right now. We are talking about a player that was incredible at a World Cup at 18 years old. We're talking about a player that destroyed France. We're talking about a player that his speed is so crazy awesome. But I'm going to tell you right now, lads, one thing that makes Mbappé great is his speed on the ball. And when you play through the center, it's not as easy to run at full speed. Playing out on the wings, much easier to utilize his speed. So I think that Mbappé is being held back at Real Madrid, and I think Mbappé is holding back Madrid. I think both scenarios, they're both holding each other back.
In every team he has played for, The entire structure has always revolved around him. The ball is given to him more often, space is created for him, and even the pressing structure has to be adjusted to suit the way he played. That means the team has to accept compromises in collective pressing intensity, sacrifice part of its positional discipline, and prioritise individual output over overall balance.
Vamos!
Stop celebrating. You should have passed it to me. If you do it again, you're going back to Dortmund. Now give us a penalty.
Has Mbappe ever been a team player? So he's never been part of a team. And if there's one thing footballers need when they're not at their best and they're going through a tough time, is the teammates. But if you make yourself completely separate from everybody else, it does affect the way everybody else around you plays for you, looks at you, and holds you to a different standard.
And Vinícius was placed into that same system, a player who also performs best when given freedom, who also prefers operating on the left flank and in the half space, and who is also not the type of player to rigidly follow positional structure. When two players like that coexist, harmony without sacrifice becomes impossible.
Big questions as to whether or not Vini and Mbappe can play together. Vini had his best spell when Mbappe was out.
I mean, I agree. We've seen Vini not be at his top level when Mbappe's in the lineup. They both want to shift, like you mentioned, they both want to shift to that left side. There's only enough space for one of them on that side. And when you're out of that position, don't feel as comfortable, Vini is clearly struggling with that. And I think that's just part of the issue. The team is going to struggle back from the midfield as well.
You know he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, he's not, of course.
They can't play together. I'm not convinced. In order to win the Champions League, I'm not convinced that they can play together. To be competitive in La Liga-ish, okay, right? But for the standard this club has, for me, I know that Papa Perez has his own agenda, and ultimately what he says goes.
Yeah.
But for the sake of the club, if you're going to build a club around him, they can't coexist for me.
Both players need to receive the ball in the same areas to create danger, and they both tend to attack heavily on one side. 70% of Real Madrid's attacking sequences this season have been concentrated on the left wing, creating a team shape completely tilted to one side. This creates imbalance within the system, not only in attack, but also in the structure without the ball. Neither of them is the type of player to maintain constant pressing within a system, causing the pressing block to become disconnected. A chain reaction is created. The right wing becomes abandoned and can no longer function as an effective route for ball progression, existing only as a secondary option. The midfield gets stretched because it constantly has to compensate for the spaces in both half spaces, having to support the build-up, while also covering gap when possession is lost. And when transitioning into defence, the team is no longer compact enough to stop counterattacks because the distance between the lines becomes too large, meaning that just one successful escape from the press can allow opponents to reach the goal completely. At the beginning, everything still looked fine. Mbappé was still scoring consistently, and those numbers were exactly what helped him win the Golden Boot. Vinícius was still producing highlights, dribbles, and explosive moments. It gave fans the feeling that the system was still functioning. But what happens when that magic disappears? If we put Mbappé aside, if you still believe he can be the one helping Real Madrid's attack because of his goals, then let's look at Vinícius. From being the soul of Madrid, he is now declining uncontrollably. His scoring efficiency has dropped by 40% compared to last season. After the Ballon d'Or shock and the arrival of Mbappé, Vinícius is no longer the main character.
Vinícius Júnior, very poor. What you expect of him, the players that let Real Madrid down were Vinícius Júnior. He's another one that thinks he should play every game when he's not performing. 0 goals in 6 Champions League games, 5 goals in 16 La Liga games. Shows that he's not at the levels that he was in the Ballon d'Or year where he was close to getting it. But he's just, when you watch him out, the basics he does wrong. He's not really getting past players anymore. I look at Vinícius Júnior. He's got that ego, like he thinks he's the superstar, but he's not putting in performances.
He has become more involved in arguments and off-field drama than focusing on what happens on the pitch. Now Vini no longer shows any connection with Madrid's system. All people see in this player now is someone who complains more than a world-class player who once competed for the Ballon d'Or.
We have to talk about
how disrespectful Vinícius was. Not attending a ceremony like the Ballon d'Or, supporting Vinícius Júnior. And this is the way you are repaying the confidence of the club? Disrespecting the manager? Disrespecting your teammates? I'm done with Vinícius Júnior. I'm done.
He's not a victim, he's a protagonist. He's the reason we're talking about this. Again, we're talking about Vini Jr. and his attitude. And I'd rather not talk about it. I'd rather talk about how brilliant he was, but we can't.
When failures keep coming, people tend to look back at the past and ask themselves what the difference is between Real Madrid's system back then and now. In the past, Real Madrid also had some of the best stars in the world with Cristiano Ronaldo, Gareth Bale, Karim Benzema, and others. But instead of collapsing like the current team, that was a squad that truly terrified all of Europe. Together, they created an achievement that may take a very long time for another team to repeat, winning 3 consecutive Champions League titles. But within that system, it was not simply about assembling stars to create such a powerful team. Like Mbappé, his idol Cristiano Ronaldo also started as a winger and changed his style to become a goal-scoring machine. The difference was probably Ronaldo's incredible adaptability, as he was always willing to play no matter the position.
Where do you want to play in the team? On the right or through the middle? Do you know yet?
Well, I don't have a preference. I can play in the left, in the right, in the middle. For me, it's not a problem. I just want to play.
Gareth Bale was also a player who liked drifting wide and whose role could sometimes overlap with Cristiano Ronaldo's. But compared to Mbappé and Vinícius, they were always willing to swap roles on both wings to break through defences instead of obsessing over one position, like the current players do. Alongside them, Benzema was also an irreplaceable role in attack, as he was the connecting point for this front three. He was willing to sacrifice his own role in order to serve the system, something that Real Madrid currently do not have, as no one is willing to sacrifice personal interests. The lack of control in midfield has made everyone start missing names like Toni Kroos and Luka Modric. The ability of these two players to dictate the midfield is unquestionable. These were the very two players who played a massive role in helping Real Madrid win 6 Champions League titles. When these two players left, there was no midfielder big enough to take over the responsibility and fill the void they left behind. Jude Bellingham and Federico Valverde are 2 outstanding stars in midfield. But to truly fulfill the roles left by Toni Kroos and Modric, these two names are simply not at that level yet.
Balance to this team, structure, control with the ball, controlling the tempo, controlling a lot of things that right now Toni Kroos or he provided when he was there. And I think that has an impact on everything, the defense, the manager, the forwards, Kylian. And unless they find somebody like him or a way of doing what he used to do with other people, I don't know, 2 guys if you want. But I just don't think they will get anywhere because they will keep being exposed. They will keep not moving the ball well. They will keep not being able to control anything. And I think that's they don't down.
I mean, Modric is 37.
It felt like a privilege to watch him.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because the way he was playing was different to how anyone else plays. His understanding of the game, the movements, the little touches to manipulate the ball. You know, the people who control the ball and there are people who manipulate it. He manipulates it.
Yeah.
Every touch is with intent. The outside of his foot, the inside of his foot, the sight for the passes, knowing when to switch, when to go short, when to go long, when to dictate the tempo spaces to find yourself in.
And what has made Real Madrid even more unstable is not only the tactical aspect, but also the dressing room itself. The absence of a true leader.
For me, one of the big problems, or the big problem from Real Madrid, not now, this season, is they don't have leadership. They don't have leaders in that dressing room, not at all. I think they miss some players like that, and the individual mistakes. So you need to give your 200% to be able to win matches, because it's not enough what they are doing right now. That is the truth.
Right now, they do not have a true leader to set standards. There is no power structure strong enough to maintain order both in the dressing room and on the pitch. There is no tactical system stable enough to force everyone to follow it, the way Sergio Ramos once did in the past. Real Madrid have too many centres of attention, but no true centre for everything to revolve around. Even Xabi Alonso, someone who deeply understands structure and control, recognised the core problem of the team. But recognising the problem does not mean solving it. Even though Alonso understood the issue, he still had to submit to the power of Real Madrid's stars before he could truly do anything to change the situation. He did not fail because he was wrong, but because he tried to impose a system on a squad whose power could not yet be controlled. And everything ended far too quickly for Xabi Alonso, despite being the man Real Madrid have pursued for so long.
Alonso came in with some pretty big ideas. We know that. He wants to press and counter-press. He wants to work from the front and backwards. Clearly, Madrid, at some level, bought into this at the higher levels because they've figured that after last year, they needed to change. Their style of play was looking quite outdated. Alonso was quite an extreme version, I thought, and over the course of the season, feels like he's tapered his ideas back a little bit as he's made concessions. Clearly didn't quite make enough concessions because he's bitten the bullet 6 months in.
After all, football is not a stat-stacking game like FC 26. You cannot throw every dream-rated player into one formation, press a button, and wait for trophies to arrive. Real Madrid do not lack good players. In fact, they possess some of the best world-class players in football. But what they lack is the most basic thing of all: cohesion and the ability to play as a team. Talent without organisation creates chaos. Freedom without a controlling hierarchy creates conflict. If Mbappé refuses to become part of a system, and if Vinícius cannot overcome his ego to take a step back, then Real Madrid will become nothing more than a luxurious fashion runway, where superstars showcase individual skills on top of the ruins of an empire. Until then, Real Madrid's Galácticos 3.0 will remain nothing more than a collection of scattered meteors, colliding and self-destructing within the galaxy, instead of stars continuing to write history. If you enjoy our video, don't forget to hit like to help this video reach to other football lovers, and hit the subscribe button to follow for more interesting videos about football stories. See you in the next video.